Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Cade. I'm joined by my friend Andrew, and this is our review for The Wicker Man from 2006. And the reason we're reviewing this one is because this is revenge for Andrew making us rewatch Cats. So, Andrew, The Wicker Man, what were your thoughts on the movie?
This is an incredibly boring, not scary horror movie. Now, parts of this movie have lived in internet infamy for the 20 something years since it's come out, and those parts are worthy of living in infamy. They're quite hilarious, whether or not it's the Nicolas Cage in the bear suit, the not the bees scene, the cold cocking random women, and the stealing a bike at gunpoint. Those scenes are all hilarious and deserve to live in internet infamy. But oh my god, the rest of this movie is really bad. Like really, really bad.
Well, you know what? Before we get into all our issues with this movie, why don't we talk about any of the pros that we might have? Were there any pros that you had with this movie?
I like the cinematography. It's very well shot, especially all of the walking across nothing scenes, but we'll get into that in a second. And again, the scenes that from this movie are hilarious, but that's about it. Otherwise, this is just a very boring, badly acted, badly written, badly directed, not scary horror movie. Okay, do you have any pluses for this film?
Well, I will say this. I agree with the cinematography part. I thought that was decent. And overall, I did like the main setting for the movie on the island. But yeah, that's really all the good that I have to say about it. And what you were saying earlier about it not being scary. Yeah, that's how I feel. It was said to be this horror film, but we get a horror element to the movie, but it's not really explored to the full extent. And there are a couple of jump scares in this movie, but they just don't really land. One that comes to mind is the crow scene inside the desk where he opens up the desk in the classroom and the crow flies out. It just didn't really come off as scary.
Yeah, it kind of just left me asking more, why was there a crow on a desk? Like the setup doesn't even make any damn sense. So thus the scare doesn't make any sense either.
Yeah, and I think another thing that kind of bugged me was throughout the movie, you seeing him trying to use his phone to call for help or something. When earlier in the movie, he had mentioned that they don't have cell phones on the island or that phones don't work. And my question from that is, so earlier in the film, you also see him looking on their website. And what I'm confused by is, so they don't have phones on the island, but they have a website.
Which means they have internet. Oh yeah, we don't like outsiders, but we're gonna have a complete connection to the outside world. It's like again, it doesn't make any damn sense. And then the fact that they keep revisiting the whole "oh, I don't have any cell service" throughout the entire movie. It's again, if this was meant to be a comedy, that was a brilliant choice. But if it was meant to be genuinely scary and supposed to increase tension, it's just kind of ridiculous because it's been established at the beginning of the movie there's not going to be any cell service. So why the hell would that change at any course in the movie?
Well, another thing that I have an issue with is Nicolas Cage's character, Edward Malis. So throughout the movie, he's obviously this officer investigating the disappearance of this girl, Rowan. My issue is he's not exactly a very dedicated officer or detective character because not only does he keep making, not very rational decisions throughout the movie, which is something I always can't stand in horror movies, but he also just brushes things off pretty easily, and it just makes it hard for me to root for him as a protagonist and as a character.
Yeah, because it's like he doesn't. Honestly, he doesn't really even do any actual detective work in this movie. He makes a bunch of random discoveries out of order. It almost seems, and then just kind of randomly thinks he's on the right track. And then can we also talk about the fact that he just kind of the jarring shifts in tone in this movie because it goes from genuinely trying to be really emotional when he's talking to his ex fiance, and then all of a sudden he's screaming at her like, "How did it get burned?" It's just so damn jarring and
Well, and I think one big issue that I had with this film, because I've seen both this movie and the original, was I had an issue with all the changes that they made from the original. And what I mean is, look, when I watch a remake, I'm not looking for it to be exactly like the original, because that's completely pointless. But this movie made too many changes from the original that, in my opinion, just didn't really land as well. So the movie gives Malus a connection to the missing girl by making her his daughter, his daughter with Willow. And in the original, that wasn't the case. It was just a girl who he had come to the island or the town to investigate the disappearance of. And I don't really think that this connection to the missing girl was necessary.
yeah, no, honestly, I just feel like that's kind of an extraneous detail. It just feels like they added it for the sake of adding it.
Yeah, and also when it comes to the character of Willow in the original, they weren't ex-fiancés. His first time arriving was the first time that he had ever met Willow. They weren't ex-fiancés, and the girl wasn't their daughter or anything. That was just another connection that I felt was really unnecessary for the plot.
Yeah, because wasn't the plot of the original, again, he was just there kind of like on assignment, like he got assigned a case.
Yeah, he had been contacted to come out there. He wasn't sure by who, but he had gone out there to help out with the missing girl.
Yeah, and then on top of that, the whole reason why he was, the whole investigation, the plot, the cult's whole plot is they wanted to test him to make sure he was worthy of being the sacrifice for the harvest. Because that's one of my other big issues with this movie is the cult's plot in this movie doesn't make a damn lick of sense because their entire plot, their entire future hinges on Sergeant Howie showing up to the island and investigating the case. Well, number one, they sent him a letter to come and investigate. What was their, did they have a backup plan if, they got the address wrong or if he had moved away or if he just didn't bother? That's a lot of future you're hinging on somebody opening their mail and not throwing it in the trash immediately.
Another thing that I think was used way too excessively was, and I know that this bothered you during the movie, was how the movie kept referencing the truck accident from the beginning of the movie. And again, that's another change. That wasn't in the original film. So you have that truck accident, and they just keep referencing it throughout the movie in flashbacks or dream sequences to have something that traumatizes him. I can kind of see what they might have been going for. Maybe it was to motivate him more because of the fact that he couldn't save that family. He wants to save this girl who turns out to be his daughter. Maybe that was the intention. But for me, the issue with that is it doesn't really connect with the overall plot of the film.
No, it doesn't. And it honestly doesn't even make a damn lick of sense on top of that because were they actually in the car that got hit? Or because they kind of established, oh, they never found the bodies. And then so that, they tie all of this trauma and all these flashbacks he's experiencing to that, but that doesn't even, we're not even sure if that actually happened. It doesn't add anything to the damn movie. They could cut it out and it literally wouldn't have any impact. It's not like, oh, this truck accident is what leads him to investigate the cult on the island. Just there's no connection between this truck accident and the rest of the movie. So why the blue hell is it in here? It has no reason to be in here.
Maybe it was just for him to have something to be traumatized by or to have something that haunts him throughout the movie.
Maybe, but why would he need that? It doesn't add anything to the movie. It just what actually no, it does add something to the movie. It adds length to this movie. Because let's talk about how god awful boring this movie is. Cade, this movie is what, an hour and 3/4 long? And how many times when you and I were watching this did we make mention of the fact that they're painfully padding this movie out? Yeah, with all of the walking scenes, because genuinely, there's way too many scenes of Nicolas Cage just walking from place to place in this movie, or cycling from place to place in this movie. I genuinely lost track at 10 times they had those flagrantly padding scenes to it. This movie he could have been less than an hour long. It really could have, but they just keep padding it out and out and out, and it's so damn boring and so damn repetitive. This movie is better than Ambien. I recommend this for insomniac patients because nothing effing happens in this movie until like the last 20 minutes. And then you get all the iconic scenes that you know from this movie if you've been on the internet in the last 20 years. And again, those are great. They're unintentional comedy gold, but you've got to get through so much boring crap to get there.
Well, and when it comes to circling back to the changes of what this movie makes from the original, here was one big change that I felt wasn't really the best decision. So, one of the biggest themes of the original film was that it explored Christianity versus paganism, because in the original, Melis's character, Sergeant Howie, was a Christian officer. And as he was investigating the disappearance of this missing girl, his beliefs were challenged by all of these people and their devotion to paganism. So, when it comes to this movie, they don't really explore that theme in a different way, which in remakes, you can use the same themes and explore them in an entirely different way. Instead of doing that, they kind of ditch that and they make it more about men versus women. And you could really see that throughout the movie. It just makes men and women enemies, specifically when it comes to Melis's character or the other men who are on the island. it just makes them enemies. And that's not really what the original explored. And the whole battle of the sexes thing, it's not really as interesting as Christianity versus paganism. And it doesn't really work as well with this type of horror movie, in my opinion.
No, it really doesn't. And honestly, I think it would have been better if they kept that aspect from the original because it would have given Howie some level of actual conflict, like some character development besides just meandering around and making stupid decision after stupid decision.
Well, and one other thing that I did want to bring up, and before we wrap up this review, is I don't entirely understand why they created this whole scheme, all the members of this pagan cult. In the original, it made sense why they did, and they explained it to us really well. In this, we find out that they had created it because they wanted to lure him there so that they could have him be the sacrifice. Here's my question, though. They already knew who he was when they brought him there because of Willow. So what I don't understand is, if they had to wait until that specific harvest day to sacrifice him, then okay, fine. But once he was on the island, why didn't they just grab him, keep him locked away somewhere, and then sacrifice him when they needed? Why did they create this whole scheme and all the fake stories?
Yeah, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, the cult's plot genuinely doesn't make any damn sense because it entirely hinges on this one person showing up and staying there long enough for them to sacrifice him. Again, what if he had moved away? What if he didn't show up? What if he had left the island? And he's like, okay, I need some backup in this investigation. And then, he disappears off the island. Like, I hate stupid plots in horror movies. And this is one of the worst. I fully agree with people who tell me that this is one of the worst remakes in Hollywood history. It really is because it's boring and stupid and dumb and badly written and badly acted with weird, jarring shifts in tone. If this was supposed to be a comedy, then this is one of the greatest comedies of all time because it is that damn unintentionally hilarious. But my God, this is a crap horror movie.
Well, tell you what, to wrap up this review on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this film?
Two. Again, if it wasn't for the unintentional comedy gold of the last 20 minutes of this movie, with the bear suit and the stealing the bike and the how did it get burned, how did it get burned, and all of that, this movie would be a one, maybe even a zero to me because it is that damn boring. But that little bit of unintentional comedy brilliance saves it from the being one of the absolute worst movies I've ever seen. What about you?
Well, it pains me to say this because I do like Nicolas Cage as an actor, but for this movie, I'm gonna have to give it a 2.5 or a 3 because despite those few good things about the movie that I mentioned, yeah, there were a lot of issues I had with this movie, so I'm gonna have to give it a 2.5 or a 3. All right, guys, I think that that's the end of this review. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you later.